Stouffville has become a point of public attention in eastern Ontario because the local MP, Paul Calandra, would like to use this town as a commemoration point of the War of 1812 with lots of pomp and circumstance, but the pacifists who settled this town, as you can see by the sign here, are not too sure that they want to be a part of this or have Stouffville known historically as a militaristic town. Arnold, what is the basis of your protest to the military celebration of the War of 1812 here in Stouffville?
Right now we're sitting on the historic site where Abraham Stauffer first settled this. He came in 1805, and there were 55 other families that settled here in Stouffville over the next 10 years. We know that 3 of them were of, quote, military stock. There were a few Lutherans, some Dunkers, later the Brethren in Christ, and the majority were Mennonites. So that first 10-year period was a period in which this which was a hamlet at that time, was predominantly Mennonite. The hamlets around what became Stouffville were settled largely by Brethren in Christ, Mennonites, and especially the Quakers just to the north of us. So we have here 3 of Canada's historic peace churches settling clustered throughout what is today Whitchurch, Stouffville. And especially in those early decades of the 19th century, Stouffville's history was the history of Canada's first conscientious objectives, as in Niagara and Waterloo. Our Member of Parliament, Paul Calandra, announced rather suddenly to our town council a week and a half ago that he would like to hold a Freedom of the Town event here in Stouffville. And the Freedom of the Town event is a 300-year-old British tradition in which a particular military unit is given an honor by a municipality. So we came to council and asked the mayor and councillors if they would be willing to do this for a unit that had played a role in the War of 1812 and has some local connection. The problem, and this of course is connected to the war, the 200th anniversary of the War of 1812. So the problem that we as Mennonite churches had in this account was that he was connecting this particular troop's history with our town during that period and wanting to celebrate that here with a large military parade. With CF-18s flying overhead, military vehicles coming through town, large cavalry in full ceremonial dress. The cavalry in question, Captain John Button's troops, hail from what's today Buttonville, which is the west end of Markham. And Captain John Button did have authority to draw men from this entire area. That certainly is the case, but we also know that during that time, at most 5, perhaps 6, but it's probably more like 4 men from what is today Stouffville did serve in the War of 1812. So that's a slim connection, but the predominant group here were not of military staff.
Peter Niemiller, you and all the pastors have kind of gotten together here, the Mennonite pastors of Brethren in Christ, and you're prepared to go to the town council this coming Tuesday night with a proposal to for the town to set aside a site and to erect a plaque that honors what you call the Peace Canadians. What do you expect from the non-Mennonite crowd of people who live?
Well, that's a little bit hard to know exactly what or how the non-Mennonites of this community will respond. But I think we have a sense in terms of the article that was written in the Globe and Mail newspaper in that there were over 300 responses responses to the article that was written in the Globe and Mail. And the vast majority of those responses are very supportive of what we are doing as Anabaptist communities here in Stouffville in regards to the historical record. And so there is much support in terms of the responses. There are also quite a number of responses to that article as well that are making a connection to broader issues in Canadian society. And many of those comments are making the connections to the growing militarization of Canadian society in general. And so for them, they are making clear links between what's happening here in Stouffville and what's happening in our country at large. There are also some critiques, not as much to the historical, but more to the issue of pacifism in general. And then there are a wide range of responses that go off into a realm of things that are not all that helpful in terms of constructive dialogue. And I would think that that the responses of our town would probably mirror the responses that were given to that article in the Mail. I'd also be very surprised if council did not accept our proposal, because during on May 1st, in that meeting, council members and even the MP Paul Calandra enthusiastically encouraged us to celebrate the town's history and that they would be very supportive of us doing things that mark the town's history. So this is something that we are doing at their encouragement, and so therefore I personally would be surprised that they would turn it down.
At the town council meeting, I emphasized a number of times that we, as churches, embrace Stouffville's diversity. Of course, Stouffville is a very different town than it was in the early 1800s, and that we want to recognize. And our argument really, on the one hand, is historical. If we're going to celebrate the War of 1812 and Stouffville's connection to it, then we have to be historically accurate and say that this was a town that had some of Canada's early conscientious observers. But certainly, those early pioneers also have descendants in this area, and our churches are living, they're engaged. We have Karen Share here as a great example of the ways our churches have been active in meeting all sorts of needs in the community. I mentioned in my presentation to Town Council that Stouffville, unlike some of the communities in Niagara that I know well, doesn't have an armory at its core, at its center, or at its approaches in the west or east. In our town, at the western gate, we have two internationally well-respected NGOs, Christian Blind Mission, CBN, and Emmanuel International. And so here at the center of town, and there on the edges of town, we have an example of what Stouffville really is known for. Right? It's shaped by a certain kind of history, certain kinds of values that have continued to influence the way Stouffville has developed. To suggest that our town is known for its military heritage would be a stretch.
Now, Peter, you seem pretty confident that the proposal will not be turned down on Tuesday night.
I have faith.
Good for you. Good for you. You have faith. But what in the rare event that the tide turns and the council says, yeah, we recognize that, but as the mayor told me, we already have a plaque marking the historical founding. We don't need any more recognition of the pacifist founding. That was his opinion before the meeting. What do you say if the council votes it down to tonight?
Well, that's interesting information that you just shared with me there. Yeah, I mean that is surprising because a number of town councillors have correspondent with me, and in their correspondence, they basically said that if council had it their way, that an alternative way would have been found for us to have conversation with Calandra and to seek a different way of marking this event. And essentially, they allowed Paul Calandra's proposal to drive the decision. So if this doesn't go through, and we will pray that it will, but if it doesn't, we've thought about that question as well, and we gathered together yesterday as pastors and interested people, and a number of youth from the local high school took their lunch break off to come and join us in the conversation around what kind of responses will we take. And there was definitely an affirmation that is what we will do. We will do something that is creative. We will be paying attention. We talked about Kairos, God moments, God opportunity moments, and we are wanting to pay very close attention to is this something here and now that the Spirit of God is calling us as Anabaptist communities, Mennonite and Brethren in Christ, to respond in creative and life-giving ways. We have a strong presence in this town. We are not relics, we are not historical artifacts or museum pieces. We are part of the living fabric of this town. And the store behind us, the Karen Share Shop, Parkview Services for Seniors, is a large institution in this town, employs a fair number of people, is definitely an intrinsic part of the fabric of this town. Willowgrove, which is a facility just outside of the outskirts of the town, which serves children and young people and youth and families, and has a very strong peace connection and commitment. And so these are all ways in which we have been present in the unfolding of this town. And so we will build on that peace witness to show the life-giving presence of what God is doing here in our town. So
I'm tempted to start with history again on that question. In 1792, Lieutenant Governor John Graves Simcoe had a discussion with his Secretary of War, Henry Dundas, and disagreed vehemently with Dundas about why Upper Canada should be bringing in Mennonites out of Pennsylvania. Simcoe was offering a military exemption. He said, we need these groups of people. They come with the right skills to set up viable communities. And once they're established, then others from all other places in the world can come and settle alongside with them. And he was making an economic argument as well from tax base. So Mennonites came here upon the invitation of the Lieutenant Governor, and it wasn't a petition for the military exemption, but rather an offer. Last night, our moderator of Mennonite Church Canada, Andrew Reeser McDowell, who's also a citizen of Stouffville and a descendant of the earliest settlers here, wrote on behalf of Mennonite Church Canada to the present Governor General, David Johnson, and asked him personally if he would give oversight to the speeches being made here on his behalf and on behalf of the Governor General's Horse Guard, which is receiving this honor. And the request is that Governor General Johnson pay close attention to the history that is being used in the presentation, and that our hope is that he would give the ceremony the right balance and fairness.